I want to tell you what happened to me recently in Ukraine. Perhaps my story will help the others to get away from the hell in which we have dragged ourselves. It all started pretty well when I arrived in 2009 to the USA to study. I got a scholarship and my family agreed to pay for my accommodation and other expenses. After graduating from the university in 2013, I tried to get to one of the medical schools, but was the will of Allah, and I failed my exams in pre-med. At that time, unrest broke out in Syria. My parents' business was under the threat, and they couldn't further help me financially. I had to hold out for a year to retake the exam and try to get a scholarship, so I was trying to get a job. I had a problem with employment in the USA since I didn't have a working visa. According to the rules, I had to leave the country by the end of 2013. My student visa would expire. I had to make a decision. In August, during my regular visit to the USCIS, a man approached me and offered to discuss job opportunities with good earnings and even getting a working visa. We went out and got to the park. I was offered to go to another country in the peacekeeping forces. They needed doctors, including transplant surgeons. I immediately said that I couldn't do it openly and doubted whether I could do it at all due to the fact that I had only done the pre-med courses. I was told that this was an internal order of the government, and in the case of cooperation, they would make me all the documents needed. Moreover, I would go through the preparatory 3-month course before going. Upon my return, there would be the amount of money in my bank and a work visa waiting for me. I could start working and pay for my studies. When in 2013 I made the decision to go to Ukraine, I was curious to go through it. Of course I was forced by the circumstances. During my sophomore year at the university, I had a trip to Kyiv. It was the exchange students program with one of the universities of Kyiv. Since childhood I spoke Russian a little bit, that's why it wasn't so hard to communicate. I studied Russian at school in my homeland in Syria. My aunt was a teacher of Russian, therefore when we were to choose a country for the exchange program, I chose Ukraine. I was curious. I had difficulties with understanding my family. They regarded transplant surgery with suspicion, accusing me of immorality. So nobody knows what I was really doing in Ukraine. My family are sure that I went as a simple doctor in the peacekeeping forces of the United States to maintain peace in the Ukraine, the same they told the news. I had already known that the organ transplantation is a series of proven methods and standard operations. Techniques of such operations are not a secret. There is an acute shortage of donor organs in the world today. Therefore, transplantation is being developed and funded. It is not always legal. That's why there's a lot of moral and ethical issues. This is the hardest part of our work. You have to agree with your conscience. Everything else is already decided by greedy officials and the military. In many countries, governments are aware of such schemes. For this reason, we were promised international support and security guarantees in the foreign country. We were given documents proving that we were journalists. I was given an international press card in my name. As I was promised before a trip to Ukraine, we had undergone special training and we were ready to go. Ahead was a year of work in another country and then return back to the United States in a new life for me. We lived in an apartment not far away from the embassy of the United States. Once a week we were visited by some strange men in plain clothes. Ukrainian and American speech were permanently heard. We were told that soon we would start taking organs for further treatment of seriously ill people. Just people. Who they were, we weren't told. We supposed that it could be soldiers or citizens of Ukraine. We thought that our help is needed for life, to save lives. Every week we were taken out of the apartment to the outskirts of the city. There's a small building, private clinic, with no sign. We were brought to the door and escorted quickly inside. Everything was colored green, even the operating room. In this building, we carried out the operations shifts. Sometimes we spent the nights there. We had a hostel-like room. There were two-floor beds, just like soldiers have. It continued until the beginning of May. On the 1st of May, early in the morning, all of us were roused by the officer who announced that we were divided into two groups and told us to collect our belongings. We were leaving on an emergency call. As it later became known, we were going to Odessa. We left Kiev in the evening, and by the night we were already in Odessa. There in advance were prepared two mobile complexes for operation in emergency situations. Such situations could be only natural disasters or war. But all was quiet on the street, and there was no apparent reason for such preparations in the city. Our team of doctors was located on the outskirts of the city. The second group was taken to the center. On the 2nd of May, we all stood up and told to be ready to receive organs to prepare them for transportation somewhere further. Our group on the outskirts of the city had to take the boxes from the first group located in the city center and prepare the boxes for long transportation. Throughout the day we worked like convicts. Under the gun and the cries of the military, we had first serious fears for our lives, and the first serious suspicion of reality. In one day, my eyes have seen so much organs that I hadn't seen during all my studies. From where they were brought and why so many in one day, we couldn't watch the local news at work. When in the evening one of my colleagues said that there is a battle in the city. Was it war? We didn't know the correct answer, but realized that there was something abnormal. Everything happened so fast, as if in a hurry to collect as many organs in one day as possible. Collect and take out. Withdrawal of a kidney from a corpse for transplantation is permissible under the following conditions. Only 30 minutes after the establishment of the disputed biological death, despite holding the entire complex of resuscitation, and the recognition of the absolute futility of further resuscitation. It was obviously that all were in a hurry to catch. We all hurried at gunpoint, and collectors, the first team in the city center, were also in a hurry, because living kidney cut from a living person is much more valuable than the dead one. The cerebral cortex die within 3-4 minutes after the person's death, but the kidneys can survive up to 30 minutes. But The sooner they will be cut and preserved, the better they are for transplantation. Ideally, till the donor's heart still beats. Therefore, hunting, rigidly enforced by the military, was for the living kidneys. To prepare the surgical field, smear with iodine and brilliant green chest, abdomen, groin. Raise the hands up and tie them with the help of the bandage. Then make a cruciate incision in the abdomen of the donor, and then extract the organs according to the scheme. After the events in Odessa, I realized that things were not as we had been promised they would be. We were told that we would work as doctors in the field, but in fact, it turned out that we were not doctors and pathologists. We had to open the bodies of dead soldiers and ordinary people. It was then in Odessa on the 2nd of May when we first heard about some important military man, Nalivaychenko, for the first time. During loading boxes with the organs in a car, 2 soldiers had robbed the truck, and the officer was kicking them for a long time and shouting, "If at least one of the boxes is damaged, I will sell your own kidneys to Nalivaychenko." On the 3rd of May, early in the morning, we came to a city or a large settlement. A day later, our motorcade of 3 cars drove on. It was after Odessa. There were Slavyansk, Kramatorsk. We were moving between cities in the night, and all the while we were doing the same thing. Every day we worked like slaves, cutting and collecting organs. It was bodies of soldiers on the streets of towns and villages. Every day our hands were in blood. It was the hell in reality. From morning till night, mutilated bodies and grimaces of horror on the faces of men and women. Yes, they brought us not only the bodies of dying soldiers and from the battlefield. We came across perfectly clean and tidy bodies as well, with 1 bullet hole, most often in the head. I thought it was the worst thing that doctors could see in their lives, but there was a real nightmare waiting in front of us. We had become part of this conveyor intended for extraction, transportation of human organs, and I was part of this infernal machine. When we were brought in Donetsk, the situation became even worse. Now they began to demand from us to follow the plan. Every day before leaving, we were given a list of what we had to find in the streets of the burning city. There were children and pregnant women in this list. Those who refused to carry out the plan for the day were beaten and threatened by becoming donors themselves. That week in the first group, 2 men were lost. Didn't return from the city, so we were told. In Donetsk, they brought us to the laboratory of transplantation of vital organs. In reality, it was a scare room with 20 square meters. It was all in the basement of a residential building. We were shown an ammonia plant and an iron cabinet with drugs and instruments. There was poor lighting in the basement, and it was damp and cold. We went over the boards under which squelched dirty water. We had 3 wooden operating tables. It was evident that they were made before our arrival. We operated with conventional incandescent lighting. No equipment, permanent noise and smoke from the diesel generator. Above the windows of the basement, the laboratory constantly drove heavy machinery, and gunshots and explosions could be heard. We were guarded by 4 people with guns. In our basement worked a real biological bank of living organs. In the basement we lived during the summer, worked and slept between the comings of the military. Then we went on a mission, walking behind the military, cleaning out the battlefield. In August, we were able to escape from this hell. We were returning to the city from the countryside, where we had gone for new organs. There were 5 men in our car: the driver, 2 guards, and 2 surgeons. The car was coming back after the job. There were organs in the boxes, 12 boxes. We drove up to the checkpoint, and in the morning it had been hours. As it turned out, it was captured by other military. We realized it when we met the car that began blinking lights. Our driver was the first to realize what was happening. He tried to turn right on the road. Then firing started, our car was damaged. We stayed near the forest and wanted to flee into it, but the guards demanded that we took all of the 12 boxes. Again, I heard the threat that we heard already in Odessa about special order, and that we ourselves could become donors of all organs if the product wasn't delivered. That someone called Nalivaychenko and his mercenaries would find us in an hour, or we would be killed on the spot while trying to escape. We took all the 12 boxes and ran towards the bushes. Shooting and explosions started all around us. I don't remember exactly what happened then, as we were covered by the explosion. And when I woke up, it was already dark. Boxes were gone. I went on the road with my hands up. In my hand was the document of the journalist, the one that, according to our employers guaranteed us security in the foreign country. But we had been told about peace, and there was war. I had no choice in such circumstances. I walked toward the unknown. All hope was my journalist legend. I was questioned at the checkpoint. I said that I had been taken by those people and held captive for the 2nd month. And then I was sent to Donetsk. There were people from the security services or the police. I can't say for sure. I don't know what was the form they were wearing. It was unfamiliar for me, and without any insignia on it. After 2 days of questioning, I was placed in a cell with another journalist. He was a real journalist and was already in a month in Donetsk. 3 days later, we were passed to the international organization. Thus began my long and difficult journey home. Now I'm in a safe place, and I hope that many of the guys who worked with me too. But we all remember the war, brutality and cruelty, the one that forever changed our lives. Sometimes Allah breaks our spirits to save our souls.